Hi, welcome. My name's Claire Graves. I'm Executive Director of the Webby Awards, and we're so excited to have you tune in today. As most of you know, this year marks the 25th Annual Webby Awards, a huge year for us. Tomorrow, we're closing our entries for the competition, and we are deep in planning for our show. It's definitely an interesting year to be working on such a milestone celebration. But when it comes to the internet, which of course is what we do, this is definitely an important moment. From how we work and learn to how we socialise, the pandemic has accelerated how we are all using the internet. And at the Webby Awards, we're fascinated and closely watching how the world and humans adapt and change through the lens of innovation and technology. Of course, this year there's also been a reckoning through about the impact of technology on our society. Over the last few years, we've seen the rise in fake information and hate speech and algorithms that are designed to promote division. And just in the past 6 weeks, we've seen how this can culminate in real violence and threaten our democracy. And so as we embrace all the internet has brought us this year, we're also forced to grapple with the many big issues with regards to power and scale and the future of the internet. This is why I am so excited to have two leaders who are thinking about all of this to speak to us today. We have Vlada Botnick, co-founder and CEO of Marco Polo, and Selena Deckelman, SVP of Firefox. And we're going to dig in and look at how Marco Polo and Firefox are focused on building businesses that put what is good for people at the center of their strategy. And how, if we get this right, we will build an even better internet and a better future through technology. So let me introduce Vlada and Selena. I'll start with you, Vlada. Vlada Botnick is CEO and co-founder of Marco Polo, safeguarding your close relationships, making it easy and joyful to stay in touch, to protect privacy, and continue to build an emotionally nutritious experience. These values aren't just talking points. This belief is at the core of how Vlada knows Marco Polo can become a sustainable business in a way that feels true to their mission. In April 2020, the team launched Marco Polo Plus, a paid membership plan which offers a premium experience for its millions of users. Polo Plus delivers on promising to monetize their business in a way that is true to their values. No ads and no selling data. Welcome, Vlada. We're also extremely privileged to have Selena Deckelman with us. Selena is responsible for Firefox desktop and mobile products and search business. Mozilla exists to ensure that the internet is open and accessible to all. Selena's passion is working to make sure Firefox represents a better experience of online life. She also guides explorations into new areas in which the browser can deliver unique value. Selena's career spans more than 2 decades in tech, education, and manufacturing, as well as numerous volunteer positions. Outside of work, she's a weightlifter, a bird watcher near her home in Portland. Welcome, Selena.
Thanks.
I'm so excited to have you both here to talk to our audience today. So here at the Webby Awards, we've spent the past 6 months researching, documenting, studying the impact of the pandemic on society and the internet. With our partners at YouGov, we did a huge survey. We surveyed 3,000 Americans all across the United States. And I thought it would be helpful to kick off our discussion with a snapshot of what we learned. So from how we communicate to how we're seeing doctors engaging in social media, more people are trying new things and using the internet more than ever before. When we asked about the future, just 8% of people want things to fully return to normal. 56% of people noticed flaws in the structure of society that they wouldn't have noticed if the pandemic hadn't happened. And 75% of people we surveyed believe that post-pandemic, there needs to be some sort of permanent change to society. So you can see, thinking about how we build and create as we emerge from this crisis is critical. People are using the internet more than ever and relying on it more than ever before. Plus, they are aware of inequalities around them and people want permanent change. So it seems that we are right for setting out to build a better internet with some of this in mind, and you are both focused on that. My first question is for both of you. It would be easy to say more people are using the internet. Let's grow, grow, grow. And I'm sure all organizations are thinking about that. But can you kick us off with some thoughts about how Marco Polo and Mozilla are respectively approaching growth and scalability while also embracing the original intention of their products and missions of the companies? Selena, why don't you start?
Sure, thanks so much. So thinking about this, I just want to say Mozilla is an idealistic company, and I think much like Marco Polo in this sense. And for the last 20 years, we've really embedded our values into our products. In particular, that the internet must be open and accessible to all, and that will always be true for us. What I will say though is I think what was true for the internet 20 years ago, it's substantially different today. And as a result, for us, like growth is now about bringing exciting products to people that help them access the power of the internet versus just embedding our values in those products. And so when we say that, we mean you personally access the power of the internet rather than empowering big tech to just make more profit. And that's like what we believe is the best way to grow. And Firefox, it continues to be an incredible tool for empowering individuals. The VPN, we think is a great consumer protection product, and Pocket, we feel is the best way to experience great content, and is now, it's continuing to build its community every day. And so looking out into the future, we really want to see like a new generation of products that truly make the internet better. And we're doing that with things like the Builders Program and the MOS program.
Awesome. Vlada, how are you thinking about this?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me be part of this. I'm so excited to be here. And as you mentioned, Marco Polo is a video communications app, and it's really the best way to stay in touch with your closest people, not the entire world. And the reason for that is because we're designed to be really good for you. And Claire, you alluded that in the introduction, but that is really something at the core of what we're doing. And for us, that really starts with it starts with everything. It starts with the values, with how we were founded, but it also starts with the business model and design decisions that we're making every day for how we're going to grow. And I think the key to this is really the business model. Picking the right business model helps you align your business in the way that makes sense to what you're trying to do in the world. And because for us, we're a purpose-driven company, we want to help people feel close. We knew right away that advertising was not going to be how we're going to monetize our business. And while making a leap to subscription was a big bet, we knew that we had to try. We knew that was something that was worthwhile because that's what's going to help us make all decisions to help us grow. And with subscription as the core business model, it means that we are creating products that people really value. And unless we create a product that people value, they're not going to pay for it. And so that's how we're approaching growth. Like, how do we make design decisions? How do we create products? How do we add features in a way that adds a lot of value every day to the people who are using it?
So given how you think about growth, do you believe that social networking companies were created with great intentions? And how do you think those social media companies return to those original intentions?
So for me, it's hard to know exactly what the intent was. I know that most of social networking companies started like in a college dorm room. So it's hard to imagine what all the intentions were. I know regardless of what the intentions were back then, I think what we can all see now is that there's harm that's happening. There are some decisions that are being made that are actually causing harm to our well-being. And I think at some point, we as a society, and I believe it is our responsibility as technologists, especially because, like you said, people are using technology so much. It's no longer like a once in a while utility. I see it with myself. I see it with my kids, especially. It's now something they're using daily, hourly, several times an hour, right? Like it's becoming more and more part of our life. And so I believe we have a responsibility to not cause harm. You know, we can't ask all people in technology to create products that actually make you feel better or help you feel close. But I think it should be a baseline demand that people build technology does not cause harm. And, you know, and when I think about it, is that, and especially with my kids, again, like it's so core to why we started the company and why we run the way we do. Like, when is enough enough? You know, we've already seen the Social Dilemma movie that came out in the fall. We know how bad things are. Dr. Vivek Murthy raised the alarm about the loneliness epidemic several years ago. We're seeing the rates of suicide increase. How many deaths, how many issues is enough at the point where we say, okay, profit at all costs is no longer acceptable. We gotta take care of each other. We gotta take care and make sure that the products we create are back to being magical and are not causing harm.
Selena, what are some ways that you at Mozilla and Firefox have chosen to leave money on the table in order to build products that are focused on the best interests of consumers?
So I think the most obvious thing that we could have done is just turn Firefox into a gigantic ad network from the beginning and made billions of dollars. And we chose not to do that. So, you know, from the beginning, it's been critical to us. It's embedded in our mission that we create. Sorry, my husband just left me some snacks. The benefit of working at home.
We had a snack person.
I get snack delivery. Anyway, so yeah, so I mean, it's part, you know, embedded in our mission. Like we want to put people at the center, and as a result, we make counterintuitive decisions from time to time. And you know, one of my colleagues recently, Marshall Irwin, he was in a panel that was kind of talking about online harms and, you know, what Firefox is doing to make good in the internet. And, you know, he put it this way, so that every major privacy initiative that Mozilla has tried to lead and drive over the last decade, it's resulted in a significant amount of pushback from the part of the industry that wants to retain their somewhat illegitimate foothold. And if, you know, if we aren't doing things that make people a little bit uncomfortable and probably even upset, then we're probably not doing it in the right way to fix the internet. And, you know, that's how we approach things.
So we know that a better internet is a powerful thing for society. But how are your organizations measuring consumer appetite for something as intangible sounding as a healthier online experience? Vlada, why don't you start?
You know, that's a really interesting question, because I think actually it kind of comes back to what Selena says. I don't think we can do that based on what the consumer appetite is, because it's almost like trying to take candy away from somebody who loves sugar. You know, it's like, it's really not possible, really, as I'm again thinking about my kids. There is this addiction that's happening, you know, and people, I mean, like in our space, in communication space, social networking space, people kept thinking that, yeah, we're being connected. And to them, seeing the highlight reel of somebody's life, you know, just the beautiful beach photo and the food that I ate was enough to think you're connected, and you're not. That is not what connection is meant to be. That is just an illusion of a connection. So I think if we were to go by what consumers think they wanted, maybe this sounds really arrogant, but like, I don't think we'd get anywhere. And I think for us, like what makes us different, and I think same with Mozilla, is that we're really values driven. Like for us, it's like, what is the right thing to do in the world? Like, what do we know based on research that says, like, here are the things that lead to people's happiness, and here are design decisions, they're actually not good for you. They feed on your vanity, they feed on greed, they feed on addiction. Like they do these things, they cause harm. And if you can be a purpose-driven or principal organization, then you can have, you know, the audacity to say like, no, we're not going to do that. And then build the things that you know are right, because that's the right thing to do. And I know that can sound really preachy, and I always really hesitant to come off like that, but like that is what's at the core at Marco Polo, at least. Like we just believe that's the right thing to do, and so we're doing it.
And I feel like that is also obviously the way that Mozilla thinks about the world. Selena, and I believe that people use Firefox because they know that it's a safer browser and they're going to have a better experience in terms of their privacy. But Selena, how do you all think about it?
Yeah, I think, you know, so much agreement with Vlada's perspective here. And, you know, I would say, so Firefox, it's true. A lot of people make that choice based on, you know, their understanding of our values. They also make that choice just based on like what their friends and family are, you know, encouraging them to do. And it might not always be a, you know, fully principles based decision. Just want to be clear. And so for us, in thinking about like the value of a browser, which is, you know, these days it's almost a commodity, right? Like it's like, what really is the difference between, you know, this browser and another one? You know, some of it comes down to just the feeling. You know, there might be some look and feel in the way that, you know, as you transition from one task to another, like what does that feel like? And we go out and we test, you know, like we ask consumers, you know, to walk through these things with us. We sit, you know, we used to sit in a room, you know, and ask them, you know, how this feels to them, how they go about their daily life. And you know, so I would say like our approach very much informed by our values, that comes first. And then we spend a great deal of time looking at, you know, in the tasks that people increasingly, you know, are having to do online. You know, there was this like figure that just blew me away the other day. I was looking at like something like, you know, it was like 5 million, it was like 3% or something like that of US workers were working from home before the pandemic. And now it's like over 40%. It's like 2/3 of the US economy are like people who are working online. And this is just like, yeah, it's an astounding amount of change. So for us, you know, values definitely come first. And then we do spend a lot of time with consumers, like looking at the new problems that they face as their lives change, as the devices that they use change. And, you know, and then we build that into our products.
Can I add to what Selena, you were saying? I think the other piece is education, like educating people on like here, like, and I think you guys have done a lot of that too, like, you know, all the work with privacy, like here's why we stand for what we stand for. Here's why it's important. And you might really like this candy, but this other thing that's not broccoli, it's still like sweet and beautiful and lovely. You know, can still be really good for you. And here's why you should choose that. And I thought the point that you said about trusting your friends is also an important piece, because I think we're seeing that quite a lot with Marco Polo. Like we haven't spent any money on growing Marco Polo. It's all been word of mouth. It's all been organic. And I think that is because that if you're going to be talking to your sister or your mom, you're going to want to do it in a place where you feel safe, where you feel like you can really be yourself. And so all that growth has been happening through word of mouth.
Yeah, and I want to say my niece uses Marco Polo, and that's how I got introduced to it. So,
love it.
yeah, I complete agreement there. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
that was actually going to be my next question, but before I go there, I also want to say that Celeste Barber got me onto Marco Polo, so
awesome.
Influencer, an amazing one to have, because someone that's really passionate about the internet as well, and people using the internet in the right way.
Thank you.
But that was exactly my next question. How is it possible to educate customers and educate people about how, you know, it will actually cost more to build ethical products? Or to put it another way, what do you think is going to be the tipping point when people, the public, become willing to pay for a subscription service like the VPN from Mozilla or Marco Polo?
Go ahead, Selena.
Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, I can take it first. So it is really important to Mozilla and to Firefox that fundamental protections are always free. And, you know, we are pushing for things like encrypting all HTTP traffic, you know, in supporting organizations, you know, which was incubated at Mozilla and then became its own organization, like Let's Encrypt. Like we do a lot of infrastructure kinds of things to drive fundamental privacy and security protections for the whole internet. So that's one part. Um, and then, you know, on the education front, like what I would say is like we kind of approach this from two different directions at the same time. One is like deep partnerships with people who are kind of on the edge, the frontier, who are doing research, and we try to get that research out there, but get it out there in a very accessible way. So, you know, trying to translate that into language that a consumer is going to understand, as opposed to being like in some highly technical journal. Like we really try to do that. And then, you know, in terms of the other pieces, like what I really value about the VPN work that we're doing right now is that it's enabling us to bring something that has a true cost, like in terms of serving it. You know, like we you know need to pay for the infrastructure to provide that, but we can really try out some kind of on the edge kinds of features. The team, you know, just the other day was like sharing with me some of the um, so some very technical things that they're trying out that, you know, one day will become mainstream, I think, in all products. But that's what we do, like, you know, approach it from the research side, and then also like use the consumer funding that we get to do you know, in market testing of things that we think will push the industry even further. So that, yeah, so that's generally how we approach it.
Yeah, so for us, we're a really small company. And so our education, we really rely on the people who use Marco Polo. And, you know, we have millions of people who are using it. We're relying on them to sort of be like our front lines. And like I said, mom to mom, sister to sister, you know, brother to nephew, like whatever it is, like using the close ties to spread the word about Marco Polo. We found that to be a really effective way to do it. And we will be spending more time this year and in the coming years partnering with organizations to help educate the public more and more. And in terms of the tipping point, it's such a great question. I mean, so, you know, I keep saying we're a purpose-driven company. So for us, we really, like, even our free app is an excellent app and there's no ads. Like, this is just how values-based we are. Like, we are not going to have advertising in our app. We're not going to sell your data. You can trust Marco Polo to be safe, a place for you to, you know, safe place for you to be. And then in terms of subscription, you know, what we're looking at is like, how can we still monetize? How can we offer like a more premium experience, a more elevated experience around some of the convenience features? And I mean, we're not sharing numbers yet because it's still early, it hasn't even been a full year yet, but I think the tipping point is here. Like, I think we are really proving that if you build something of value, people will pay for it. And, you know, and everything that's happening in the media, like right now with like all the awareness that's happening about how dangerous it is to give away your data and all the things that Social Dilemma has exposed, I think people are starting to wake up to it and starting to say that, like, with their dollars, that, you know, I'm willing to pay for something that cares about my well-being. So I actually think it's really here.
It's here. It's good news.
Yeah, I think so.
So you have both spoken a lot about how important values are to your companies. What do you think about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion when your companies research the audience for your product? Vlada,
I can start. I can start this time. To me, that it's just baseline. Like, it's not. The products we build are for consumers, and so when we do our research, when we think about consumers, it's everybody. So for us, it's just, I don't know, it's just the way of doing business. It's making sure that when we are doing our user studies, when we're doing our usability, when we're deciding which features to work on, which features not to work on, we always make sure that the customers we're talking to represent the greater scope of who Marco Polo is reaching, but also within our own company. Claire, you and I were chatting about this before, but like, we're a completely remote company. We've been like that since 2012. And so part of the beauty of Marco Polo is that we come from all walks of life. I can't even keep up with how many states we're in now. I think it's 18, 19, something like that. And so even within the company, that was something that was really important to us. Sure, remote was important from the point of view of working joyfully and be able also to get access to talent anywhere. But it also was really important because we knew that if people in the company represent the audience, then chances are our product will represent the audience too. So for me, that's not like a separate afterthought. It's really part of how we do business at Marco Polo.
Selena, how about at Firefox?
Yeah, sure. I think very, very similar thought process to Vlada and Marco Polo, and just to kind of put this conversation in context, I think what Black Lives Matter teaches us is to think about systemic racism. It's like, I think profound that President Biden in his acceptance speech, he said systemic racism. And I think this is like, you talk about a tipping point. This is a moment where it's no longer optional to consider that in the makeup of your company, the design of your products. So to me, that's been a powerful change. It feels no longer like you're swimming upstream to get people to see that we have to think this way. This is just the new way of being. And for us, there's some very like kind of practical, tactical things that we've done. Like, for example, when we're doing that consumer research, user research, we make sure that our consumer panels and the interview subjects, they're representative of the populations in terms of race and gender and on other axes. And I would say another thing that we consistently invest in is accessibility, both as a discipline and, in all aspects of the browser itself.
Most tech companies are focused on maximizing the time spent on their platform, despite knowing the impact it has on people's health and mental health. So how do you build a company that doesn't have an adverse impact but captures our attention? Selena, why don't you go first?
Yeah, this is a fundamental problem with growth and metrics. And we spent in the last few months a lot of time talking about what a great metric, for Firefox itself might be, and the topic of addictiveness, and whether we should think about trying to count hours or minutes spent or something like that. It was a topic of discussion. And where we came down on this was that the browser is a utility, and it is a thing that if it's reliable and you can come back to it day after day, that is like a net good, I think, for the person using it and for us, as the creators of the product. And so for us, it was less about how many hours or minutes that someone spent using the browser, but just that they came back, over the course of a week or a month or something. So for us, that was sort of the compromise position. We want to make sure that people are getting value from it in a variety of ways. And like the core driver for that for us is that that they're coming back, over the course of a week or a month. And that's been a valuable perspective, and one that we thought balanced that difference. Yeah.
How are you thinking about it at Marco Polo, Vlada?
Well, I think time well spent mostly matters if you're an advertising model, because the way that, and just to be clear, like advertising by itself could be totally fine. But the thing is, we got into this habit of optimizing the revenue we can possibly get from ad models. And that's where all the nefarious behavior is coming from. It's trying to get you to stay on the site for as long as possible, invite as many people as possible, so you can show as many ads and benefit as much as possible. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to profiteer from that. And so for us, we don't measure that. We don't have an ad-based model. And Yeah, I think it's as easy as that. We don't measure it. And so the way that we think about like things we do measure is very much like what Selena said, like what is the retention of our user base, how often they're coming back, is a very key like quantitative part of it. But the other thing that we invest quite a lot in is sort of like the heart of the company and the qualitative research that we get from our user base. And it's the stories that we hear back from people over and over, and especially during COVID, how we've become a lifeline for them. You know, people can't imagine living without Marco Polo. Stories like that is so powerful and so like, I mean, as I'm saying this, I'm getting chills all through my body. And like, this is why the team that we have gets up every day and does what we do. It's because we're a lifeline, you know, like that is so valuable. And I think that's what gets the attention. Yeah, and I think subscription model has a nice way of still capturing the business value, but it doesn't force people to come back. And like it doesn't force the tech companies to create interesting hooks to get you to come back for no reason other than to get you back on the site. And it's not to say that we don't do notifications. Of course we do, because we want you to know when your friends are talking to you and your birthday and like things like that. But just being thoughtful and mindful about it is really, really important. I think measuring time spent on site could be really a rabbit hole down bad behavior.
So have you seen the way that people are using the app really change over the pandemic? We have one of our stats is that people are using social media 50% more than they were using it before the pandemic, but it would be interesting to hear how you have seen people's behavior change. Yeah,
so it's been really fascinating to watch because we've been doing this we've been sort of doing the same thing for a while, you know, helping people feel close with their people they care about the most. And then with COVID hit, the intensity of love for Marco Polo really shifted. It really became like a lifeline, as I mentioned, for so many. But the other thing that's been really interesting to see is how creative people have become using Marco Polo. We had teachers using it with their kindergartners, like basically getting their parents on Marco Polo and creating groups and then reading bedtime stories to the kids. They can still keep that connection. I know, right? Isn't it adorable? We have stories of people still like best friends introducing each other, like kind of matchmaking, and then connecting. 11 months later, they're engaged and getting married. So there's just been like really interesting cases. But of course, there's also been cases where, you know, there's health issues. And with COVID, people weren't able to come to the hospital, whether it's the person is really sick or to give birth to a baby. Like you're basically on your own. And Marco Polo provided a way for them to feel like the people they really care about, you know, could still be there to support them through this. So those have been the changes.
Amazing. I mean, I definitely have felt over this time that Australia, you can tell I'm Australian, is extremely far away. So I've been using Marco Polo with my sister because then at least we can connect more.
Yeah. And, you know, we started hearing about the Zoom fatigue that's been happening, and Marco Polo is such a great way to still have that face-to-face connection in between all your set times of connecting.
At your own convenience.
At your own convenience, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we've got lots of questions coming in, so I might just have one more question from me and then let's pass it over to the audience. In 2018, this is actually one of my favorite moments at the Webby Awards. We honored Mozilla CEO and chairwoman, Mitchell Baker, with a Webby Lifetime Achievement Award. And her 5-word speech was, we have 5-word speeches at the Webby Awards. All winners are only allowed to say 5 words. Her 5-word speech was, demand better of the internet. This has been something that we come back to a lot at the Webby Awards. We often use people's 5-word speeches kind of champions for ideas. So while the industry knows that there's a lot of work to do, there's actually a lot of consumers who are hearing about a broken internet, but may feel it's actually working well to meet most of their needs. So how do you fix something that many people might not really realize is broken? We've spoken a little bit about education, so I wonder if there's anything else that we could be doing to, as an industry, to fix what's broken and educate people.
Yeah, what comes to mind to me is like, what if we just shatter their expectations of what's possible? You know, like, so my vision of what's possible is really shaped by my life. You know, my Chinese father met my American mother on an island in the Pacific. You know, I grew up on the road following construction jobs. My stepdad in the American West, and you know, and now I work for Mozilla. So I really know how life can be transformed either by chance, you know, or through, you know, the direct impact of the internet. And it's almost strange, like, to look back on it now, but when I first started working, like, all remote collaboration, it was by phone, you know, and for me, like, it was, I did a lot of my work using internet relay chat, like IRC, like, it's super like nerdy, like, you know, goofy stuff. But now we have Zoom, we have Slack, we have Marco Polo. It's really just transformed, you know, what our workday is like, and, you know, really how we're living our lives. And so, you know, I just want to say, like, the world is changing around us, and I'm just not really sure we've quite had the time to reflect yet, but I think it's coming, you know. And I, you know, so switching though a little bit, it's saying there's more to life than work. And the questions I ask, like, you know, is the web a place where people can learn and share without being manipulated? You know, is it a place where creative expression thrives? You know, and even the more mundane, it's like, can you even trust that when you find a 5-star toaster online, that it's really a great toaster? You know, like there's like these like basic questions, like when you start to sort of like peel back, the web is amazing. Like, we are registering for our vaccines through web portals. Like the web has enabled us to do things at scale that we never could have done before, right? So, you know, it's profoundly a good. I believe that. That's why I work at Mozilla. And there are these questions, when you start to ask them, you know, there's it sort of peels back, you know, the curtain, and you think like, oh yeah, there's work left to do here. So to me, that's yeah, that's the work.
Blow people's minds.
I love that, by the way. No, I love that so much. I love blowing people's minds. Just your question is so great. And I think the things that come to mind for me is, I think there's both something that consumers can do and we as technologists can do. I think what consumers can do is demand better internet. They can demand better products. And you can see how, I think it was a mom who demanded for food companies to start putting ingredients on the labels in the order of how many products, like in the order of the amount, right? So you can still choose to buy that thing that has corn syrup and sugar as the number 1 and 2 ingredient, but at least there's transparency, and you as a consumer are armed with information. And I think we can demand that of our technology companies. We can demand that of ourselves. And then as technologists, I think we can do a better job of, like, just like we're, you know, people are measuring time well spent, people are measuring retention, people are measuring all these things. I think we can also commit to not causing harm. If there's evidence that shows up that the products we've created are causing loneliness, depression, suicide, mental, physical illnesses, let's commit to doing better. Let's not profit at all cost. I think we can together bring the magic of technology back.
Yeah, I just like so much agreement. And that, you know, the example that you shared, that it made me think of like another, you know, I don't know how famous she is, but her name's Ursula Franklin, like a technologist, a metallurgist who did research on radiation's effect on children. And she did it in this like really goofy way. Anyway, the story is like super interesting. It's worth looking up. But that story and her power. And she wrote this book that influences me a lot called The Real World of Technology. It's totally worth reading, and it's short, which is amazing. And I
love it.
yeah, like I I think that that's so important. Like as technologists, like how are we doing good in the world? You know, and it's not always through more technology. It might be through better choices.
Yeah.
All right, we've got lots of questions coming in, so let's go over to some of those. We have one from Jamie in LA. She would like to know, do you believe that CEOs and tech co-founders have a responsibility to consider consumers' well-being when building products? And what would that look like? Either of you, whoever wants to go.
I'll just say yes. I mean, it's, you know, part of why I value Mozilla being governed by a nonprofit. You know, we are able to embed values about what's good for people into how we run our business. And so for me, like I think that there's huge value in considering what the impact is and how to make people's lives better when you're making technology, running a technology company, for sure.
Vlada?
Yeah, I would add that I don't think we can demand that every technology company is creating things to help you with your well-being. You know, I think that could be like too much, but, and I'm not sure if that's what the question is asking, but I think we can demand that every single technology doesn't do harm. I think that's like we at Marco Polo actually want to help you with your well-being. We want to help you feel close, and you know, we're working on like research and things to see if we're actually leading to happiness. And there've been some studies to show we do, but like that's because that's us. Like we, like, you know, like Selena said, like this is why she's at Firefox. This is why she's working on this. But I don't think we can demand that of all technology companies. But I think we can demand the baseline of do no harm. So I would say, like, let's focus on that. And if there's evidence that shows up that it is causing harm, then start putting, you know, I don't know how familiar like OKR systems, like objectives and key results. Then have an objective in the next quarter. Let's not cause harm, and start creating ways that you can measure it and reverse some design decisions. And I'll just add one other thing, just so that it doesn't sound so like idealistic and naive. I think the part that's important, like I understand that there's investors, I understand there's like shareholder responsibility, but I think like one of the ways that things could change is actually when you are fundraising, when you are starting a company, ask yourself, who are the investors you want to be working with? And one of the things that was really important to us, every pitch we started, we said we're a purpose-driven company. And so the investors that are on our board know that we're not going to do things that are typical. Like I can't remember, Selena, the phrase that you used, but like, you know, we're not the same as everybody else. We're weird in that way. And that's what they signed up for. And so I think it's important to think of that from the beginning. I think it's a lot harder, you know, after 10 years of making billions of dollars, it's a lot harder to say, okay, how are we going to change the business model? Well, you have a lot of stakeholders and shareholders who buy your stock, who invested with version A. You can't just switch to version B. That's really hard to do. So thinking about it from the beginning, I think, is the key.
Yeah, that's super interesting to think about it that way. We have this question, actually, I think it's a really good one because we have spoken around it, but we actually haven't spoken about it. And it's from Jeff in Massachusetts. And he's asking, what's the true cost of having your data and consumer behavior sold to third parties? It's a big one. I'll let anybody take it.
I can go and give it a try. So to me, I'm sure that someone can put like a monetary value to it, but I think the bigger harm is sacrificing our privacy. There's another really great, you know, again, short paper about, you know, what the value of privacy really is. I think her name's Julie Cohen wrote it. And, you know, the problem with these systems that are used today is that they're designed to nudge you, to subtly change your behavior over and over and over again over time. And that's the, I think, the true cost. And we see that borne out in some of the systems, you know, like people talk about these radicalization holes that people fall into where they're driven to more and more extreme content online. And I think that that's like one example of a multitude of things that are not good that happen when we sacrifice our privacy online. So, you know, that to me is the true cost to society. And, you know, I believe that it's very important for us to keep these core philosophical values around privacy and what the value of that is to individuals as well as to society. And we're kind of balancing like the regulation and what we put into products and all of that. We really have to think about, you know, what autonomy and like living a full life online, as well as, you know, like not online. A lot of it's online right now, but you know, like it's that to me is the true cost.
Yeah, I'll just add to that I think the cost is deterioration of our well-being, mental and physical. You know, and I hate to be the Debbie Downer here, but the loneliness epidemic is not just like randomly happened.
Yeah.
It's over time, there's been deterioration of our mental well-being, which actually causes physical well-being deterioration as well. Like there's research that says loneliness is as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's as bad for you as obesity. Like loneliness is like a major health risk in our society. And that leads to suicide. I mean, like actual death. So the cost of this is not, it's the things that Selena is talking about for sure. And like all that nudging, like ultimately can lead to like really horrible outcomes. And that's why I'm so passionate. So like my kids are in that tween stage where they're soon become teenagers, and I'm seeing this. And it's super scary for me as a mom to know that they're already getting addicted to screens. With me, like all the fights in our house are basically about screen time and how much time they can have. And it's because I know what these apps are doing. I know what these tools are doing. And I'm truly scared for what's to come. And yeah, I think enough is enough. We got to do better here.
Well, I don't think we can leave it there because it's a bit too down, isn't it? But I think that, I think we're at this, from the Webby Awards perspective, you know, we're at this moment where we're in crisis. Hopefully we're coming out of this crisis, and the crisis has drawn attention to so many different important issues in society. And of course, one of those is how we can have a better relationship with technology. So hopefully from this crisis, we can all take the opportunity that is now has been gifted to us, and start working together as an industry to help fix and build a better internet.
Claire, do you mind if I just add one more thing?
Of course, Vlada.
There's also a group that is a pretty small group, but they're starting to grow, called Mobius, that is actually working on helping create technologies worthy of human spirit, which I know sounds like very noble, but they actually are working with tech companies, and they're working with some of the big tech companies, and we're working with them too, like to empower technology to go back to its roots, to go back to magic. I think we can do it.
I agree with you. I have no doubt that we can do it if we're doing it together. You have both shared so many interesting things for us to go and look up. I feel like in the email that we send out to everybody who's watching tomorrow, we will include all of these references. Before I wrap up, I just want to give everyone one quick reminder. Our extended entry deadline is coming up tomorrow. That will be the final, very last. There will be no more chances to enter the Webby Awards. So if you do want to participate this year, it's the big one, the 25th, then you need to get your work in by Friday, February 12th at 11:59 PT. You can enter at webbyawards.com. I want to say a huge thank you to our guests, Vlada and Selena. Thank you so much. It's been inspiring listening to you today. And finally, I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors as well, Slack, YouGov, WP Engine for their support for this program. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Stay well.